I'm going to take it a step back. I think if you're in a relationship or you have friends, but I think more for the relationship, you have to sit down with them and communicate.
Welcome to Motion Matters, where we shine a light on the entrepreneurial journey, sharing real stories of triumph and challenge. Guided by Jamie Tilka, we connect, inspire, and educate. This is Motion Matters.
Hello and welcome to Motion Matters. This is the entrepreneurial podcast where we talk about the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship. And today I have Ashleigh Seay with me. We got introduced by a fellow real estate investor and talked a little bit with Ashleigh, found out that she had gone from, her W-2 job and gotten involved in real estate. And she has a ton of stuff going on in Tennessee and super interesting story. So I'm really excited to have her here today. How are you doing, Ashleigh?
Doing great. Thank you for having me, Jamie.
Awesome. So I would like to open it up to you as I typically do. And if you don't mind, just give a little bit of background to the people listening about, where you came from and then what brought you into this real estate entrepreneur journey.
Absolutely. Many, many years ago. um, so I was born in Virginia, and what brought me, I lived in several different areas. What brought me to Tennessee was I said I wanted to go to school, but the state of Virginia did not offer the degree I was trying to pursue. So I got an academic common market scholarship I applied for that if your state didn't have it, you could go to that other state and do an in-state tuition. So I was able to come to Tennessee, get in-state tuitions, and I never left. So I came to Tennessee in 2006, finished my undergrad in 2009, and then went out into the workforce and was a busy bee doing the W-2 work. And then along the way, you learn, okay, the next step is meet with a financial advisor. Then I met with them and they was like, you need 2.5 million to retire. And of course, the number you said, yeah, I could live on this. Being a young kid, you don't know inflation, you don't understand interest rates, and just doing simple math, I was like, yeah, this don't add up. How am I going to get to this point? So then my mind starts spinning. And then later on, I was in and out of several relationships, but nobody ever had the same mindset. And then I ended up meeting my future spouse, and then our heads kind of went together, and we were like, okay, let's try real estate. So we jumped in real estate about 2017. We've done flips, wholesales, long-term, and then 2021, I believe, 2020, we started getting into short terms, and we can talk more into that. And then I left the W-2 in 2022, and then I got out, got a little bored. Things weren't filling my bucket. My confidence wasn't as high because, you're moving outside your comfort zone. So recently I did accept a job and went back into it and building a team for a company. I love it both, but whatever I've done in those 2 years that I was out, I'm still doing the same thing. So I've got about 3 to 4 different jobs going on right now.
Yeah. Holy, that's a lot. Man, I want to go back to try to stay in sequence, but I'm also, I'm kind of salivating to ask you a question about kind of your current situation with you working, but I'll pause that one.
Okay.
So 2017, that's interesting. I kind of started on a similar timeline, 2018. So that's interesting. And we also went heavily into short term. We opened up a boutique hotel. So I'm excited to ask questions about that. So when you guys got started, one of the things that I talk about is that a lot of people don't have every aspect of what it takes to necessarily get involved in real estate. Like maybe they don't have the funding, or maybe they don't know how to find deals, or maybe they don't have no time, right? Or there's all these different aspects. And so for you to kick it off, was there a struggle with you not necessarily having that or trying to figure out how to the game? So can you talk a little bit about how you got into the game?
Okay. Yeah. All the above were a struggle. You don't understand how to leverage what you have around you until later in the game. I feel like sometimes some people get it right from the beginning, but we were thinking we had to have all the cash. We're thinking we needed all the time. We needed all the
Mhm.
resources, all the structure set up prior to starting. So I'm not going to say we did anything right either. But as we've moved on, we've cleaned up things as we went. But in 17, we started with a flip right away. And we ended up buying back a reverse mortgage home in Florida, and we're in
Mm.
Tennessee. So our first flip was long distance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a family member that just said, I'm walking away. And I was like, well, there's actually some money on this deal. Why don't we just go to the bank, figure out what the payoff is, get them back out of it, and then we can resell it. It wasn't a lot of money made on that one at all, but it was a lot of bought lessons, as my aunt would say.
Yes.
But it turned out okay.
That's awesome. Bought lessons 100,000%. But wow, look, I tell people typically fear is the number one thing that inhibits people's from going after
Amen.
what, their aspirations are. And so I think you actually added another layer of two because there's, 1,500 miles of separation between you and that. So you just mentioned that the fact that you bought it from a family member. So that takes a little bit of the unknown out of it because you probably had a better understanding of what the financial terms over there. But I struggled with trying to get people to work on the properties when we first stumbled. How the hell did you go through that?
If bought lesson here, we thought since it was family, we were like, we've been down there, we visited, shouldn't be no issues. We didn't do an inspection. We just we
Ah,
just bought the house. So yeah, we ran into the HVAC was leaking a little bit, and it had created a mold problem. So basically, I'll go back to how we found the contractor. So the contractor was like, I can't lift this. It's so old. If I bust that pipe, I don't have a replacement to do this HVAC. So we had to change the whole HVAC out. So that was about a 10 grand expense we weren't expecting. And we had to
hello.
clean out all the ducttop because the mold had grown up. And later we found out they were like, yeah, we saw a little mold. We were just spraying bleach back there and we were good. So I was like, thank you. But the contractor, so we went down to Florida. At the time, it was my spouse's brother came and he was like, well, I'm in between things right now. I'll go down there and support. But we knew it was a lot more than he could handle. So when we were down there scoping it out, we went to a restaurant, and I'm a chatty Cathy. So I went in there and I was like, hey, do you recommend anybody that y'all have used in the construction world to do reno? And we got several contacts and one guy answered. I'm not going to say how that all went.
Mm,
But
mm.
we hired him and he came in and worked with her brother. And, we finally got it done. It was behind schedule. Monthly bills doesn't stop because you still got to pay the utilities and the insurance. And then by the time you paid the labor, it was a lot of bought lessons. And we actually went back to the office after that and was like, okay, what is everything we learned from this? And what will we not ever not do again? And the first thing we put on there, we said, we will never buy anything without properly looking through an inspection.
Yeah.
Or either we learn what we need to look at in case the market rushes us so we can prepare ourselves for the future.
Yeah. Well, I think, somewhat answered the question, but I still want to ask it for clarification. So, was your spouse's brother your quote unquote boots on the ground person?
Yes.
Okay. Because when you first told your story, I'm like, what? Not that you can't. Again, it's not insurmountable by any stretch of the means. But I mean, for most people, the fear of figuring out how the hell you're going to find somebody that's 1,500 miles away when you're not there to touch it, breathe it, smell it, how do you do that?
Hmm.
So that was your boots on the ground person.
Yeah, they
Um,
were awesome. They ended up staying in the property, which we were a little worried because it was a retirement community. We were like, just hide, just stay low key because you can't stay there for so many days if you're under the age of 55.
right.
So they were a trooper. They stayed in the house and, just kind of kept the project on. But they helped us because the expense was going to be a little high with painting. So they agreed to do a lot of the taping off for the contractor. But yeah.
Yeah. My first deal, I ended up losing 13K on it, unfortunately. But that's why I 100% with what you said about the cost of tuition or whatever your phraseology was.
Hmm.
Did you break even on that one?
By the time I paid the last settled out utility bill, we differ, but looking at everything we spent, the gas going down there to Stays, I think it was 400 plus profit.
That's a win. No,
Yeah, we got a steak dinner at Waffle House on that one.
but listen, like, okay, you said you got in-state tuition. I don't know, and you told me before that you're an engineer. And I mean, I have no idea because I never went to college. I barely passed high school. But my guess is the tuition for that type of degree. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes.
Oh yeah.
So think about that. You made $400, but I would argue in that one project alone, you definitely completed your first, if not second year of college.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
speeds it up real quick when you actually do a project.
for real. And that's why I constantly tell people, I'm like, you have to get in the game. And there's two things I mean by that. The first thing is you got to be in and around the people that are going to help you figure out how to get in the game, right? So if you're not going and meeting people, et cetera, et cetera. But then the second thing is you got to actually go through the wickets. And you have to mentally prepare yourself for the fact that you may not walk out of this having made money, but you made a ton of experience, right?
Yes.
So project number 2 was what?
I think we did some marketing and had a wholesale deal, which had no clue what wholesaling was.
Same.
We got I was sending out a lot of these letters, and one lady called me and was just like, later after we asked her, well, what stuck out? And it was a pink, we did a pink flyer.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of times I got a lot more hate when I put my name on it. So a lot of times I was putting, more traditional names or men's names on them. So it's amazing how many times I got called out and cussed out saying, I know my finances, blah, blah, blah. So this lady called back, was like, I liked your letter. It stood out because it was pink. So we ended up getting it under contract, but bought lessons there. I didn't understand the whole, when you bring the people that want to buy it into the property and the owner's still there, where they spoke up and said how much we had it under contract. Well,
Mm.
then the investor was like, no, I don't want it, and then of course, at the end of the day, we didn't want to take it on because we weren't experienced in that neighborhood. So I said, look, if you'll pay for my marketing, would you take the deal? And he said yes, of course, at that point, because he got a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
He got
Yeah.
it for about $1,000 more than what we paid,
Yep.
and might have been less than that. And his rent was through the roof what he got. So he got a good deal on.
Oh yeah. Well, none of us, I don't believe that the vast majority, if any, people could have predicted what was going to happen post
Mhm.
pandemic with the inflations and all of the rent raises. I mean, we live in a place where, in 2019, a 600 square foot apartment probably would be getting $400 to $600 a month, but that same
Yeah.
place now is probably 1,000 plus. It's ridiculous.
I mean,
Um,
because he probably got that for less than 40,000, and I think he was making over $1,000 in rent a
come on
month.
now. I look, we've, just recently met and we're getting to know each other through this podcast, but I'm listening to your story. And as far as I'm concerned, you got 2 podium medals already because you got a shit ton of experience and you didn't lose money yet. That's
Yeah,
amazing. It really, really is. And then obviously you have what I like to call the compound education, right? So each time you not only learn something new, but then you contrast it against your other experiences and you just become a little bit more savvy and whatnot. So you tried to wholesale this place and you got the experience.
mhm.
What was the next one?
Then from there, we went and, uh, we did 2 flips at the same time locally, and we got with a friend, because at the end of the day, we're engineers, and
Mm-hmm.
overanalyzing, that is a common with with us. So we got with a friend. They were like, what do you do? And I was like, okay, because they're on the real estate side of an agency and we were on the side of, we wanted to be investors.
Yep.
So we end up putting our heads together, and they were like, well, I got money. And we were like, well, we can match it. So we end up pulling the trigger, I think within a day of each other, buying 2 houses back to back. So we
Wow.
did those flips. The contractor wanted to quit, but he stayed on board So we got them flipped. We got them sold. I think the first one we sold, it was 60K profit. So we split that. And then the second one that sold, I think was around 50 and we split that.
But were those local to you?
Yeah, they were local.
So awesome for that. Sounds like your first experience of being able to probably be more, present
Hmm.
within that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's huge, I think.
We were coming into the pandemic at that time. So we were at that point on the last one, we were like, okay, we got to unload this. So we kind of lowered the price some. And then after that, it was like, the sky's the limit on what houses did. So it
Yeah.
was just a weird time. I mean, looking back, everybody's like, oh, I would have bought the whole neighborhood. And I'm like, yeah, but when we were actually going through that time, we had no clue what was going to happen. And it
Yes.
was scary through the whole thing. I mean, we even looked back, it was like, man, maybe we should have kept all those for rent because we had not that much into it. But at the end of the day, you're just going with the flow when that whole time was happening. And then shortly after that, we started taking the profits and just going in long term and short term rentals from there. But the first multifamily we bought, I guess we were kind of out of it. I'm not really laid off, but they were like, we don't need you. Go sit at home for 2 weeks. And we had just bought that. So I took those 2 weeks and I flipped it. And we had a crew of women in there and we worked around the clock and we got a 4-2 completely remodeled in, I think it was a week and a half.
Wait,
So
wait. So this is the multifamily.
yeah, it was
How many units?
a little triplex,
Okay.
three doors.
Yeah.
And the owner had lived downstairs, so we were like, okay, well, we'll just flip this one because it didn't make sense numbers with just what we had bought upstairs, but we knew the potential on buying it because the downstairs was owned by the owner, so it wasn't fully rented. So
Mm.
we spent that time and flipped the downstairs
Yeah.
and increased that one. We at the time we were like, we're so overpaying for this. I think if you don't mind going through numbers, I found that for sale by owner. I left work, stopped by that house, found the owner, and we chit chatted all night. And she felt comfortable with selling it to us. And she said, "Well, come for your best offer. It's already over asking." So we came in right at her asking, and she sold it to us. Really sweet lady, and we got that for
Mhm.
215, and it was only making, was it 1400 at the time? I think it was only making
Okay.
1400, and today I think it's making 3500 a month.
Still have it.
Yeah, we still have it.
And so for the people that are listening that maybe aren't in it yet and can't, have an idea. So what's your PITI on that? What's your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance?
I think that mortgage is around 1400, about $100 a month in insurance. I do pay a property manager about 8% on it. So it profits.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and I do take care of the lawn. I just make that. I'm big on, I don't want to have to worry about stuff or worry about someone else doing it. So I just try to automate it as much. So I have people just take care of the property and just let them just live there.
Yeah. Well, I would concur with that, but then you stumped me a little bit because you say you mow the lawn. So I'm wondering, is that
I
therapeutic?
don't. I
Oh,
outsource it.
okay. I was
Yeah.
like, wait. I was like, maybe it's a therapy thing for her, and
No,
she can hook on
I
it.
automated, meaning I set up the mowers and they go out and do it.
Okay, sweet. I'm with you 100% because again, that's one of the mistakes that I made in the beginning is I thought I could do everything, and I
Oh
quickly
yeah.
learned that's just not even possible because then plates start falling and things start breaking, and then people get pissed, and it just becomes incredibly, incredibly stressful.
Well, you stack so much up, and then when the next emergency happens, you're already so far on edge. Then at that point, you're just over it.
Yeah,
It's too much pressure. And that's when we were like, I know we're making money. We're not pulling money out of the business, but we have to put money back into it. Because at this point, I'd rather not take profit to have peace of mind and stay and just have them, chunking along. Obviously, you always want to go for cash flow. But
yeah,
some point, I'm like, what's that extra $100 a month that I don't always have to pick up the phone? Uh, I always say property management's worth it. I took it over, did it for a while. We had it pretty much automated, but when that phone actually rang and they had problems, your whole day has to stop. You have to hustle at that point. And so I'm
Listen,
like, I'm outsourcing that 8%. And everybody's like, manage your own, manage your own. I can't tell you how many people just kept fussing at me. And I'm like, then no, until you get to this point. And I was doing active property management with short term. And I'm like, until you understand both sides of this game, I was like, long term, I'm outsourcing all day. Who we have is wonderful. We see each other in public through meetups, and he's just been fantastic in taking care of our properties and calling and communicating with me. Because at the end of the day, if you have a problem, I'm one that's not going to sit there and be like, okay, well, when you figure it out, let the tenants know. I think he called last week and was like, hey, the fridge is out. We can get a repairman in Tuesday. I think it was the weekend and it was hot. I said, it was Saturday. I think we were at a meetup with the person that connected us for this call.
yeah,
And I said, hey guys, I got to go. So I called around town, found the thing, went to the shop. We picked it up on the truck, strapped it down. I took it to the tenants and we swapped them out that day.
nice.
Because I'm like, some things, they're good tenants. They take care of your property. They've done well. I'm like, I'm not going to let them sit all weekend with no refrigerator. Can I do that with a huge portfolio? No, but I would expect that same kind of urgency from anybody that managed my properties.
Look, you said so many things right there, but two of them I really want to highlight is amen. I I relate and agree with you so much about what you said with the management aspect. If we were close, I'd definitely fist bump you or at least maybe even hug you because like I feel it. And because we went straight into the whole boutique hotel thing, like I didn't really do the long term rental right off, and simultaneously I became a real estate agent. And the reason why I did was because I was trying to build extra capital through commissions in order to be able to inject
Mhm.
to cover the gap for our living expenses because I didn't have a W-2 job. And so the point I'm trying to get to is this is after doing that, I mean, it took such a toll on my relationship. It took such a toll on my physical
Mhm.
health. I was legitimately working 14, 16, 18 hours a day. Um, and again, my point is this. I tell people all day, I was like, there's two industries that are absolutely brutal on your life. And that is being a real estate agent and being in short term accommodations or a hotel because it's 24/7, 365. And one of the stories I would tell people is I said, if you have a long term client and they find a pest control or a cockroach, they're going to call you. Reasonable expectation is get somebody out here in the next 2 to 3 days. And I feel like you addressed my problem. But if somebody's paying you $150 a night to stay in your unit and they wake up and they see a roach on there, regardless of whether you've mitigated it private, they're going to be out. Why would they stay?
Yeah.
Because it's so short term. So, like you said, the you have no life. Like you have to be responsive for that. And so, putting people in place to alleviate that, I think you just gave some people the best advice. I mean, because that's one of the top things I tell anybody that comes to me and says, "Hey, what do you think I should do?" And I would say, figure out somebody to handle and manage that shit in the beginning. You may want to dabble just so that you get a taste of what it's like, but ultimately, dude, you don't want none of that. I'm telling you, you don't want none of that. But I mean, maybe for some people, but for most of us, it's just too much of a time hog.
And I just say, if you're doing your numbers in the beginning, just go ahead and put 10 to 12%. 12% seems a little high. I don't know. It could be, I'm just going based on my area,
Yeah.
8 to 10, depending on how many doors you give them. But just put 12% in your numbers and run it and just go ahead and see what it looks like with implementing it. And then if you have short term, go ahead and put 20 to 25% in there, see what it looks like. Because I'd rather buy knowing that I could afford it later than buy knowing I've got to pinch every penny and I have to do everything myself, because you're just going to add another stress level to yourself that you don't need to.
Yeah, I 100% concur. Excellent, excellent point. Thanks for sharing that. I think the other thing that you said that I'm super passionate about, which is why I'm just going to classify it the customer service relation. And that's
Yeah.
since the day we started, I tell all the people that work with us two things. I'm like, I want preeminent accommodations and 5-star customer service. If you have those two things, I don't have to sell anything, it sells itself. And so even last night, I get a text message, the internet went out. Well, go to Best Buy, I have to buy a new wireless router because I want people to know that we care. right? And as long as
Mhm.
you're making a value and effort and communicating with people, most people will be understanding and they'll appreciate the effort you're putting forth. So
Absolutely.
kudos for you for recognizing that, because I think generally speaking, in a lot of places that I've been, I think people aren't as attentive as to customer service as we probably were,
Mhm.
as a society, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And a lot of people are just like, what do you want? And you're like, dude, well, I don't want to give you any of my money now. You know what I mean?
Because when we started presenting, I go out and talk at events, and people come to me about short-term rentals. And yeah, the thing that sells it, everybody's like, it's more cash flow. But what the first thing I said, this is what you need to consider. And the first thing is, if you do not care for hospitality and understand anything on that business, you have to treat it like a business. So
Hmm.
don't even go into it. And there's a lot of platforms that do AI, and it's good to get ideas from that. And maybe you can call me old school with that. I like that personal touch, knowing that they are speaking to someone that's human.
Same.
And I mean, AI can help clean up your verbiage so it sounds professional. That's what I would use it for. But I've emailed hosts that were near me just to get in contact with them because I like to network. And their messages come off just like very, I can tell it's generated because it had nothing to do with the sentence content that I sent them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a point to automating, but add your touch with
Yeah.
the automated messages. Don't let AI just be like, thank you for messaging.
Yeah. I agree with so many. Yeah. I think you and I are twinsies on so many things that you've already covered, because I literally said to my wife too, I said, listen, I like using the AI to get some ideas, but I said my humble opinion is yes, there may be a big shift in the years coming, but I still think there's a lot of people out there that want that human interaction. Like
Yes.
I get so happy when somebody actually picks up the phone, like a real person.
Hmm.
I'm like, holy shit.
At some point, I'm wondering if the market will ever shift, because right now all we get is you got an email, you can't talk. And I said, if someone creates a business where someone could go to the operation, or you get someone when you call, they will excel in any market, because people are going backwards sometimes. Because I think we've go so far with technology, we're just frustrated because you can't get past the press one, press seven, and I'm like, that's not
So
even my
annoying.
options for questions.
Dude.
So I think we're getting to the point where now people are like, I want to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Like, let me call you and just talk to you. And I know the millennials, they go through all the generations. And I'm like, I do like the text, but I still love just picking up the phone. It's just easier. But a lot of people will never pick up the phone. They're just like, just text me. And I'm like, but it's hard sometimes in translation with reading. How are you feeling? I don't quite understand this response.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very direct, and I don't know if you're mad. I don't know if you're sad. So sometimes picking up the phone, you can hear, hey, I'm laughing when I'm saying this. I'm not mad.
Yeah.
But a text message, it would come off very, very crude, probably.
100%. In fact, a lot of times, certain text messages, I just say, "Can you please call me?" You can't relay intonation, and one word can be, misconstrued or interpreted a different way. And I'm like, I'm not. Even if you're trying to be polite, they could read it a different way, and so I don't want none of that. I can tell you have a ton more stuff that we can share, so I don't want to stop the train from rolling. So you did the triplex. You essentially flipped it, and then, well, it sounds like
Hmm.
you bird it, and then you rented it out.
Yeah, we bought it out the way it was, and just put it in a, like, conventional loan. And then while we were out of work, I had a bunch of friends come over, and sweethearts, they all came over, stayed late, because we redid all the flooring. So that was I was hurting for a full week after that, because we were hurting
Yeah.
doing 1,400 square foot of flooring. And then we found a water leak randomly, because luckily we weren't going to rip up that floor, but I had some she women in there, and they pulled up too far, and I was like, well, it's particle board. It does not particle board. It's the laminate with the cardboard, and they had animals, and when you pee on that, it swells up, puffs up. I was like, that's fine, just rip it out. We'll put the LVP down. And then
Hmm.
we noticed some water in the corner. Well, I got a plumber, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Is it coming up through the concrete? What's going on? And we made it to the bathroom, and it was a jacuzzi. The first plumber was like, well, it's when you take a shower, it's seeping through the grout and then it's going on the other side. And I'm like, but that's a lot of seeping through the grout, and the grout looks good.
Hmm.
No shower would work if grout was leaking that much.
Yeah.
So no one really could tell me. And finally, I was like, I hate this jacuzzi tub anyway. So me and my friend went in there with a claw hammer and we busted it and pulled it out. Come to find out, the drain g- going to the exit drain, it was never sealed.
There you go.
And that water, when you finish shower, was just coming out onto the concrete. And I was like, fantastic. So that was a bathroom remodel and all the flooring, and we came and cleaned the kitchen up, and yeah, it was
The,
fun.
those are the lessons that you're just talked about, where you're literally talking about a $5 to $15 fix that could have stopped all of that.
Hmm.
Those are the lessons that I don't know about for you, but for me, they're never going to leave
I
me.
know.
We had the same situation. It was the $3, $5 wax ring that goes underneath the toilet. The dude didn't seat it properly. So for 18 months, every time somebody was flushing the toilet, this is after a full renovation
Oh
down
wow.
to the studs gut. So I had already spent, over $50,000 on the renovation. And then just to find out 18 months later, we had to gut the entire bathroom floor because it caused so much floor damage. It was,
Yeah,
oh man, for $3 to $5, absolutely insane.
that's crazy.
Triplex, after triplex, where'd you go? What was next?
Then we went into short term, and that's kind of where we stayed for a while. We did buy a duplex and flipped that, and then later 1031 it into a short term rental. So right now we didn't expand, and that's where I'm at now with another one of the questions you sent me. That's one of the things now I'm trying to figure out, coming into my power, figuring out what next path I want to do. Because we talked before the meeting that it's great when you have all this money and you're moving it with real estate, but you got to have quantity. And then multifamilies do take a couple years before you can actually turn them.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, you got to have active cash.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to support what you have on you until you can get to the levels of some of the big gurus that everybody sees on the podcast. But I just started like anybody else. I'm still in my stepping stones, and I'm loving the journey, because you find a lot of things that are just your own limiting beliefs and that hold you back. And it's difficult to sit in them.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this time I have sat in it and understood it to help me go to the next level. But I know there'll be more at the next level, in the next level. But right now, I fought it for so long, but we did short-term rentals for many years now. And we haven't really grown, but we've maintained those, and we've found ways to automate it, keep it going. And I've been helping people in the community. They always refer out to me for support. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I
Yeah.
do. I'll help you if I can. And then my mentor was like, uh, why aren't you doing something with this?
Yeah.
And then actually the person that connected us, he was the first one that said, you need to go out and sell your information
Yep.
and teach people. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if about put myself out there. I like helping people. And then my mentor now is, I helped them. They were making, I think, 4K last
Mm-hmm.
month. And then this month they made $17,000
Wow.
in 1 month.
Wow.
We turned I say we, but they had a person they hired, and I helped her with a lot of it. Told her, we audited the property. I said, this is what I would change immediately. This is what you need to put in the property. Here's how you can look at the systems. We audited about 3 or 4 channel managers with her. I got on the phone calls, and the next month they're bringing in 17,000 now. So now he pulled me in. He was like, you're going to do coaching. You've got to do this. Think of all the people you are not helping with this by saying so limited. And he reframed it for me. And this is where we're at.
Yeah.
So connecting and doing these calls is part of my challenge from my mentor, that I have to do 10 platforms in 2
Yeah.
months. And do you want to think when you help a mentor and he's opening a door, you're going to go home and sit at home and on a couch and watch TV?
Well, Ashleigh
No,
Seay
you're going to get
isn't.
up and do everything you can to move, because if you don't prove to them that you've already proved you can do the work and know how to do it, but if you don't prove that you have any action behind anything you do, no one's ever going to show up to help you and push you even farther.
Yeah, but I think that you've done something that a lot of people don't, though, and that is you've taken the action. There's a lot of people that are just going to contemplate everything that you just said and then come up with 16 justifications on why they can't. So, I mean, kudos to you for the fact that you're actually pursuing it. It's funny because I'm just listening to you, and it's literally like we're on parallel paths. I'm in the same juncture right now, but and I talk about it openly. It sounds like people are like, "Why would you sit there and put yourself down?" Like, I'm just being honest with people. I'm saying I did it ass backwards, right? I built this real estate portfolio, proud of it, but I wasn't conscientious about the fact that I really needed some type of reoccurring revenue to help sustain my day-to-day
Mhm.
life with my family. And not only that, but not all the properties can produce enough capital that there may be an influx one month, and then how are you going to cover that gap? Well, if you don't have, the resources and stuff like that. So anyway, that's super, super interesting. So how many properties are you at right now?
Five doors total.
Nice.
It's not large, but it's our starting point, and we're keep moving. But I want to highlight what you said, which was excellent. Is it's not really putting you down, but telling your story it will empower somebody else.
Yep.
Obviously, someone that's wherever you make it in your career, there's always someone higher than you.
Mm-hmm.
So where we're at, there's somebody else that we can help that is almost right there to where we're at and could surpass us next month. And that's fantastic. I say we keep rooting each other on.
Yep.
But I think the examples I see, even in my TikToks or Instagram, they're the ones the gurus, the big ones, the big names. I won't say all of them on here, but you see where they're at. But a lot of times you see where they're at and you get so overwhelmed, you don't take action.
Yep.
So sometimes it's good to follow people that are maybe a step above you and understand what did they do to get to that level, but still understand there's a bigger picture. But you have to do some building block. Unless you just get someone right off the gate with a private money fund and you've got 10 million sitting in your pocket and you're a brand new investor and you're going to go out. But I think they're going to want to see some experience in there before they hand over 10 million.
Well, I don't think I know, unless like you have an intimate relationship with that person and they're giving you fringe benefits. That's the only way. So, but you know what? That's a great segue into one of the questions that I want to ask you specifically. So my question to you is, are you a proponent of mentorship, which it sounds like you probably are, and how intricate, man, I cannot say that word.
You sound like me. I mess up words all the time. And some of my friends are like, I don't speak your Virginianese.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so how about that one? How important do you think that it is as part of your journey into entrepreneurship?
I think it's important because not everybody's gonna be like that. But when I spend money to do something, I take it more seriously
Yes.
than if something came free to me. And I hate that because there are good programs that provide value that are free and people still take action. But I've just been one of those, if it's burning a little bit, I'm going to do more. And I've just been motivated like that. I think mentorship is highly important. You don't necessarily need to go with someone at an event. I mean, just grabbing someone in your community that's doing something and just say, hey, how can I help you in your business, and allow me to just shadow you. You can trade off your time to get that knowledge. So don't feel like you have to use money. So I don't want to keep pushing that you guys spend money. But once you get to a certain point and you want to get in other rooms and you want to get closer to bigger money, I think money will come into play where you have to pay for that time in that room with those people. But the thing is, if you're shy and don't want to talk to anybody, you may want to consider how you're spending your money to get in these rooms. Because if you spend money to get in these rooms and you don't want to speak, I don't want to say you're wasting your time, but you're not getting the most. I tell everybody I work with, whatever you put into something is what you get out of it. So if you're not coming to put something into that event, you're going to go home with nothing you're going to get out of that event. Because the person on stage ain't going to be what pushes you to the next level. It's going to be the people in that room that you connect with that is going to get you to that next level.
Man, I'm Ashleigh, like I say the same shit. It's so crazy. Like I feel like I'm listening to a female version of myself. I'm serious. Because I believe in what you just said so much, man. It's in fact, I consider myself an extrovert. I like to talk to people, but if I'm being brutally honest with myself. I think initially when I got in those rooms, I was absorbing the knowledge and the educational aspect of it, but I was absolutely not doing the one thing that I knew was really most important, which was I wasn't connecting with nobody because I felt intimidated. And some of these people I knew were so far ahead of me. And I was like, what am I going to say to them? And this and that. And it wasn't until I really started engaging with people where I really felt like, to your point, that the value that you're paying to be at these events, whether it's 300, 1,000, I mean, the most that we've ever paid is about $5,000 to go to one of these events. Right. But that particular one that I'm mentioning, I raised $250,000 in 90 days after. So if I didn't pay
Nice.
that 5 Gs, I wouldn't have gotten that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100% agree with everything you said. That's awesome. One thing that you mentioned in the beginning, and I wanted to find my way back, and I'm so glad that it just popped back into my head, is so you built your career. You decided you were going to get into real estate investment in order to build some long-term
Mhm.
financial wealth for yourself so that you could retire properly.
Mhm.
But then you went back.
I did.
So can you just talk a little bit about what drove that to go back? I'm not saying it's wrong. I just want to hear your side of the story of why did you go back and what benefits is it providing for you?
So I'm going to lead with stop and celebrate your wins.
Mm-hmm.
I have a habit of never doing that. Occasionally, like we'll go to dinner if we close a deal, but that's not really sitting back and settling. So I think my mind works so fast. Once I finish something, I'm like, okay, yeah, we done that. Let's move on to the next. But sometimes it took 2 years later after we were hustling to be like, hey, let's pull out the old G&O, the goals list. And we surpassed it when we set it for money purposes. And I
Mm.
realized money was not a fulfillment. And that's odd because when you first set your goals, you tend to mold it around money. And then I realized it wasn't.
Mm.
So when I left the W-2 the first time, it was geared around money goals and hustling and bustling, let's grow. And then when I quit, because you got to remember, I was automotive engineering. When you have cycle times of 2.6 seconds, that is a hustle environment.
Hell
And then I
yeah.
went from hustle to realizing who is Ashleigh Seay without the hustle of that.
Mm.
Yes, I dabbled in real estate. Then I realized I didn't know who I was. I loved it, but it was the hardest part of my entire life that I think I struggled mentally. And so that 2 years I stayed out of the workforce, I went holistic route. I realized my health wasn't in the best shape. I started losing weight. I started understanding what I was eating, understanding the foods that I'm putting in my body. I still do cold plunges, steams. I just recently bought a red light, so I do red light therapy in my home.
Mm.
Um, I went down that whole path, grounding, looking at the sun. I could go on for days just on the holistic stuff I got into, but I became a real estate agent. That was the most taxing thing. And it brought me down because I felt like you never can please anything. And I'm kind of a people pleaser, but I want to add value, but you're not really adding the value that I wanted to add because I wanted to come from an investor standpoint, and these are active home buyers. So it's a different mindset than where I was at. So that pulled me down. I wasn't doing the hustle. Life was slow. I did write a book during that time, but I
Mm.
didn't celebrate it. It was like I'd done tons of things during that time, but I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything. My portfolio's not growing. It's me. And I got in a woe me state and I went backwards. And then that's when I said, okay, I can't live here. And I went and got a mentor. And then that mentor led to another mentor that I still work with. And then just sitting at home, I'm like, okay, if I'm not growing my portfolio, I looked at my time. Yeah, I got my time back, but I'm not moving the business to get my spouse out. So I felt like I was being selfish to them because the people that support you, you need to step up for them. And I wasn't stepping up. And I'm just going to be honest on this podcast. And that really made me depressed that I wasn't stepping up for our household. So I said,
Mm.
okay, if I'm not moving forward, I still have this time. Why don't I go I know I could go in engineering and make quite a bit per my hour. Yes, it's giving up time, but going back into that and engaging with people and figuring you can mold people and help them, that had filled my bucket so high and my confidence. I've got my confidence back now and I'm ready to go. So now we talked earlier. Now I'm doing a W-2. This week I've showed like 3 houses. So now people are still calling to show houses. We still do our short-term rental. And now I'm trying to kick off coaching and teaching and doing more with that. So I'm even doing more stuff, but I thrive in an environment that is so busy that I just can't think. When I'm in an environment that's slow, that I just found that didn't work for me. And it's probably, this is just the difference in types of people. I just always have to keep going. So yeah, I did go back and it was strategic because I'm like, if I'm going to sit at home and not make nothing on the hour and contribute business wise and I'm not moving the needle, maybe I'll go back, I'll make money on my time. And then the money and the portfolio stuff will be a byproduct, because if you don't have your confidence and you're going out there, hey, will you lend me money? Will you help me find a house? Would you help me? I don't think so. You got to go out there and be like, hey, I know how to make money on money.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do a deal?
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste your time. You got my experience. That's what you're getting out of this. So the difference in how I'm coming off now versus where I was, I can always just see a change. And maybe that's rambling a little bit, but
No,
it
no,
was
it's
a lot in 2 years. And it was strategic for me to go back. Some people are like, you're going backwards. But even talking with my mentor one-on-one, he was like, you going back to get your confidence, it was more valuable than anything. So sometimes for me, I had to step back to go forward.
look,
I don't
look.
know if some people do that in their journey. I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. But at the end of the day, I had to do what's best for me. And I can't speak for everybody else. So you have to know holistically and intuitively what is best for you personally. And don't let everybody critique it. You just got to own it and know that you're doing what's best for you and just keep going on your journey. But
Yeah.
take the advice you need to move forward, but don't. I beat myself up for going back to a W-2, but at the end of the day, I was like, I'm filling a bucket. I could never do sitting at home, because I just love the thrill of making things and really motivating people. So uh, that's all I got on that one.
No, that's not rambling. There's so many facets of what you said that again, are super relatable to me. I feel like our stories are literally intertwined. We're just doing it one state away from each other. I I always tell people, I'm like, are you willing to take 2 steps backwards to go 3 steps forwards? And I say that all the time because I want people to understand that, is that a sacrifice you're willing to make? Because unfortunately, Ashleigh, a lot of people will not do that. And you literally just sat there and said from a reflective state that I think that because I did quote unquote go backwards, although that's debatable, right? That I did go backwards, that then it produced all of these greater outcomes for me. But because a lot of people can't necessarily see that, it's fear of the unknown, then, or complacency, comfortable. I'm making a certain amount of money. I know what my day to day is like. I don't have to worry about stuff. Then no, I'm not going to. So I think, yeah, just listening to your story, I'm so effing pumped for you that I think that you guys should have a celebratory weekend, not a day, a
I know.
weekend.
I am going to get a massage, so that's going to be great. I haven't done that in a
Hell
while.
yeah.
But I want to say, when you go and invest in yourself as much as we have, and then the way I went back into a workforce now, just the mindset that the value I'm bringing to that company is different, because I'm coming from a business perspective. So making deals, I can wage out, quality versus quantity. You're looking at it from a business perspective also.
Yeah.
So and whatever I touch and do in life, I want to leave it better than I found it. And I want to be able to add value. And I told him in the interview, I said, if you've made this position and it doesn't add value, then don't hire me in this interview. We can end it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how very confident and open I am in the interviews and anything that I touch, even working with clients, even because I have to be true and honest to me as my character, because I've worked too long with the wrong people that drains your energy, that I can't do it anymore. So I want to surround myself with the people that are the right energy and the right people in my life. And we've just got to keep moving. I don't have time to waste. I guess I'm middle aged now. I mean, if you look at the statistic of life.
Yeah.
So at this point, I've got to move forward with the right choices, but I didn't trust in myself to make those. But now I think really honing in on that 2 year and understand my tuition, I always thought it was nerves and anxiety. That was my body saying, that's not right for you. Move on.
Yeah.
So now I listen to what my body says, and that may be getting a little too out there, but I think people
No.
have these feelings, but never trust them. I think you need to trust what your body is saying.
Let me just inject right there because I have to say this. And so I hope anybody that's listening to this podcast, I hope that they're listening to your story, and what they're taking away from there too is I, I don't think enough people are reflective on everything, and being willing and open to really look at yourself and take all these measurable, like, analytical thought process and stuff on how you want to become better, be better, do better. And so the
Mhm.
fact that you're doing that, I think that's where people like us, and I say people like us, meaning people that are willing to do that, both good and bad, and then use that to do better. Right. So
Absolutely.
I hope super bad. But I look, we're actually on a lot longer than I typically go, but that's a testament to things are flowing very well. But I wasn't going to ask you this question, but now I feel like I need to ask you this question, probably for me more than the listeners, because I'm not just saying this, I'm not being disingenuous. I'm being 100% genuine when I say that there's so many similarities to what you're doing since 2017 and where I started in 2018, with separating from the military and building our portfolio. So here's my question to you. And this is specifically oriented towards the piece that you mentioned about the fact that your mind is constantly going. It's hard for you to turn it off, and you want to
Mhm.
feel like you're helping other people. These are two things that I think are a blessing, but are also an Achilles heel for me and my personal relationship with my family. Um, and so that's my question, Ashleigh. Does that impact your personal life, both your family immediately and then your friends? And have you had to adjust in order to balance that? Like, what's been your approach in all of this therapeutic thought process of how do I align myself to be better, do better thing?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. And I think me as a person, I won't never, you can say you work to acknowledge it, but I don't. So I'm going to take it a step back. I think if you're in a relationship or you have friends, but I think more for the relationship, you have to sit down with them and communicate. We've
Mm,
sat down and asked, you got to ask the right questions. You got to ask the tough questions. So I think we sat down and had to ask, do you feel neglected? And that's a hard question to ask,
yep.
your spouse of many years. And when they say yes, it's tough. So at the end of the day, if I'm not strong enough to acknowledge, because I'm filling my bucket as I'm going, so I'm on a high. I
Yep.
mean, so I'm moving, moving, moving. So I think, and it may be putting a little bit much on my spouse, but at the end of the day, they have to come to me and say, "You've hit my point." They have to communicate to me, "Hey, I need my time now," and I have to. The rule for me is, if you tell me that, I have to stop, and whatever's on my mind for that day immediately goes in my calendar for tomorrow, unless it's something I promised today. But I don't promise them much from day to day. So it goes in my calendar for a reminder for the next day, and I drop everything out of my brain. I do a brain dump,
Mm,
reset the PC, and then I switch over to do something fun. But a lot of people say, well, just schedule this time, this day on a calendar. We've tried that, but it always something happened either with family or if business happened. So we try to live in the moment, and having her as an accountability is the biggest thing. So
I appreciate you sharing that. Um, these are the best conversations. I, I don't know if you know who Brene Brown is, but she's a TED Talk and, you know, famous person for writing books about relationships. But anyway, she has one called The Power of Vulnerability, and it's super powerful. And I recommend it to a lot of my guy friends because, typically males tend to not want to be as vulnerable. But I think if you're able to open up that, then I think that you can have greater growth through it, which is something we've been talking about for the last 10 plus minutes. So
and I'm
that,
going to add to that. I mean, you saying your guy friends, but you go to the other spectrum. You find the women that are the type A as well in the
yes.
relationship. They're going to be in the same boat. They don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be weak. We want to keep going. We want to be the strong one. To say we're the foundation, but I learned a long time ago I'm not the foundation. They
No.
are. I'm just the go. Because at the end of the day, I couldn't do what I do now any part of this. And I tell them every day, I'm like, we wouldn't have never done this if I hadn't had you, because
Yeah.
I don't think I would have had the confidence or understanding that the security behind me and the foundation behind me. Cause I always felt like I was on quicksand most of my life. But the minute I met them, it clicked. And I realized I was like, I actually, for once in my life, felt secure and that someone truly had my back
Yeah.
with everything I went through in life. Even family was a revolving door at times. It just never was there. So when you grow up and never truly have that foundation of a mom and a dad, you kind of go through life feeling like you're on quicksand. So once they came into my life, that was the game changer for everything. So
Yeah.
sometimes finding the right partner, and you'll hear it at tons of masterminds, having the right partner it's a do or die for a lot of things.
I couldn't agree with that more. I'm listening to you though, and it almost makes me want to go. This show is about entrepreneurship, but the reality is there's tons of underpinnings and implied things that happen, within that journey. And part of that is maintaining your personal relationships, again, both with your significant other,
Mm-hmm.
your family, your extended family, kids, friends, close friends, right? And so I've super struggled this past 5 years with what I don't think I told you this, and I don't know if you knew, but I served 24 years in the service, and I was gone a lot, a lot, right? So I wasn't an integral part. But one of our greatest struggles through this entrepreneurial journey was that when I was in the military, I was gone, but when I was home, I was present. But now I'm physically present in front of them on a daily basis, but I'm mentally and emotionally not available because I'm so stressed out and so moving forward with all those things. And so it's taken a real toll on our relationship. But fortunately, because she's incredibly supportive, and we've had open, candid conversations like you and I are discussing right now, it's allowed us to continue to pursue it. But I'm not going to lie, there's times where I know it's still difficult for me to turn it off, Ashleigh. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to be present, and there's no question in their mind that I care or love for them, or that I would die for them, or that I would jump in front of a bullet, whatever. But it's still hard for people like us to turn it off. My mind can't, it's just constantly flipping that switch about a new serial entrepreneur idea, or wanting to make something better and stuff like that. So now I'm kind of rambling, but when I was listening to you say your piece that you added on, I guess the thought that was like, I kind of asked you this, but I'm asking, I guess, is there even a deeper aspect of, have you really ran into a situation where you guys had that moment where it's just like, y- try,
Yeah.
yeah, like where the neglection is to the point where it's potentially catastrophic.
I'd say probably the roughest time we've ever had, and I've stated this in a group full of men because somehow I levitate to that environment with around the men, is that we all were frustrated about the same things, and I said that was probably really critical and breaking point within our relationship was I was treating them like a business partner. And I was like, why are you not doing this? This is what we wanted to build. Why? And the minute you start treating them like an employee, things go south. And it was a hard turn. It took somebody else to point it out to me and to say, they're not your employee. They're your partner first. So at the end of the day, if they can't do what you need them to do, then why haven't you outsourced that? And I don't know, for that day that she said that to me, it clicked. And
Can I
it was a
jump in and
friend
ask a
locally.
question?
Yeah.
So how now, man, this podcast is turning into a therapy session for me.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
so do you is she actively involved in the business? If so, to what extent? And the third and final aspect of this question is there any contemplation on if it's a good thing or a bad thing for your partner to be intricately involved with the business?
Okay. So yes, they're still involved. I realized I was I'm on the borderline right now, and I think that could change. I took the VI test. I am right there at a visionary and an integrator. And it's because I've never been able to go into my role as a visionary, because I always felt like I had to make everything as simplified on the back end. So they take care of the money, the books, anything with the bills. So they take care of the stuff that it never filled my bucket, but I did it for a while. So they have taken that part on. They still go and look at deals and go through showings and stuff like that, just to see if we want to buy something else. Right now we're in a transition because I'm trying to move on, and it will be my name kind of, because I'm trying to put myself out there for the coaching and stuff, but they're still involved. That was a big turning point at our last one-on-one with our mentor. It was just like, they asked her, are you neglected? Do you feel like, and I never heard it until, what was it, last week? They said, yes, I feel it sometimes. And it's hard to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the thing is, the neglection is sometimes they want to be there for you so much, and they want to be a part of that business. But when you have to move forward and be a little bit of the face of the business and push it forward, they feel like they can't be there at the same time. But sometimes you can't both be doing the same thing. And I think we'll hit another point in the business where if you have to be there right beside me and go to every event, and that's what you just want to be, is so involved and be there right where I'm at, we have to pay someone to do the rest of it.
Yes.
But that was the big thing. We can't both be doing the same thing at the same time, because in the Japanese world, that's muda, that's waste. It's better if we can divide and conquer. But what I found the most, and it's generally just the sweetest thing ever, it's just because they just want to be there and spend time with me. That's the reason they just sit in the office and work.
Yeah.
They just want to be there with you.
Yeah.
And I took it as, well, we're in here working. Why aren't you working harder? Why aren't you doing this? So you really have to understand your partner and really have these open conversations, because even 7 years later, I'm still finding out things that I'm like, wow, I never asked the right question to her. And it took paying someone to get in a room to ask that right question. And that's crazy. It's kind of embarrassing to say it out loud, but
no,
it's amazing as humans, we don't dig deeper. And that's because I think I'm so involved with, how do I keep moving forward and making content and pushing things forward. I don't sit back and try to think what they're feeling.
Ashleigh,
but they're sitting there thinking, they know, they're trying to sit there and figure out how you're feeling the whole time.
I felt the same way that you did. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm just offering you, I feel like we're brothers and sisters in this. I'm serious. There's so much relatability. I'm probably going to put you on my Christmas card list, but the thing is, the word that you used the word neglect, but the one that my wife used on me probably about 18 months ago that like hit me really, really hard was, she's like, I feel like I'm the back burner. And so I literally visualized it as a stove and just this little small pot in the back. And I'm like, dang. And if, again, we keep talking about vulnerability and being open, when I thought about that, I said to myself, why do I do that? And I think what it is because I do know she cares and I do know she loves me. And so I'm like, you're going to be there. I've already pacified you. And that has negative connotations. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is it's good, right? Like it's stabilized. You're stabilized. We're stabilized. But the reality is by consistently staying on the back burner, it's not stabilized. In fact, it's becoming more and more unstable, and then it causes all these other things. I love this.
I think the big thing we need to remember, how much we want to feel that connection in hospitality, how we want to have that human touch. We have to carry it over into our relationships.
Yes.
And my mentor actually stated, and it's embarrassing, but they said, go onto my calendar and put it in 3 to 4 times a day and remind myself to message them and tell them something nice, because that's all they want to hear. It's amazing when you find that person that doesn't care what you do, how many times you mess up. They don't care. They just want to be with you and they want to love you. And I don't know if you come from a background, accepting love is hard. And so that's a journey for me, having to accept the love that they want
Yeah.
to give. And I've been very blessed to have met them. And I'll say it again, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I hadn't had them in my life, because
Yeah.
they're teaching me so much in my life of just about what unconditional love is.
I think we need to look at the positive aspect more than the fact of what it feels like in the fact that you're willing to be able to process it the way you are and recognize it and change from there. Um, no, I mean, I think I don't have a sexy word to say right now, but I think that that's very it's just it's vital to the growth in the relationship as a human being, right?
Yeah.
And then the one last thing I feel like I just need to share with you, which has zero relevancy. You mentioned about how you gravitate towards the room with the men. The funny thing is kind of I use it as an icebreaker. I tell people, I say, hey, you know, I have more estrogen than most women. I said I grew up with 4 females and no father, so I can bake you chocolate chip cookies and sew your pajama pants, but don't ask me to fix a carburetor, and I know nothing about sports.
Oh,
So it's crazy, crazy, crazy. Man, this has gone on this is absolutely the longest one that I've done. And I feel like honestly we could keep talking because I think these are all things that people don't want to necessarily talk about, but
it's
they're
tough.
experiencing those problems. And so I know that I experience this. I can almost guarantee you experience it. And that is when you're listening to somebody else tell their story, it just causes you reflection on your own and then hopefully inspires and empowers them to want to adapt and make their situation better, whether that's getting in the real estate game or repairing their relationships. With that, I'm begrudgingly going to wind us out of here. And I'm going to leave by asking you a couple things. The first thing is there one particular book, one particular piece of advice, or one particular thing that you would like to say to any aspiring entrepreneur, whether they want to get involved in real estate or open their own business?
And it's only because it came to my mind first. I'm just going to go with it. But if you don't invest in your dreams, you're just going to build someone else's dreams. And I've heard that many times, and I find it very
Mm,
true. And the second thing I didn't do fast enough was leverage the experience and the knowledge around you.
amen to that. Seriously, seriously, I can't beat that dead horse enough. That is excellent. Lastly, before we sign off here, I want to offer you an opportunity to tell people how they can get a hold of you. If you have a website, social media platforms, emails, however you would best like people to connect to you if they want to be a part of a deal or they want to join your coaching group, or so how can they get a hold of you, Ashleigh?
Yes. So if the Ashleigh Seay, like what I see, shows up on the screen, you can search that on Facebook. I've got
Okay.
2 pages, but I've got a personal one and a business one. But probably my personal one's the easiest one because I get the notifications. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok as well. I think I just spelled out my full name in all of them. And I've got emails and stuff, but I don't. It's hard to get a hold of them. But yeah, just reach out to me through Messenger or something like that. I love the chat.
Awesome. I feel like I want to say it on here because I want to hold myself accountable, but there's so much relatability. I think I think I need to stop by and see you on my way to Nashville this weekend. We need to have lunch.
We need to discuss the market down here for you.
And I want my wife to meet you guys before she listens to this podcast, cuz here's what's going to happen. She's going to listen to this podcast and she's going to hit me and she's going to be like, "You hear what Ashleigh said?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I was the one that was on the show." And she's like, "Yeah, but are you listening?" "No, I'm listening. I'm I'm listening." So,
And I think anybody that's on the other end of the one that's always moving, there needs to be, and maybe we should create it, but there needs to be a mastermind for them, because I get in the whenever there's a group, I get put with sometimes with the women group, but that's the ones that are talking about the other side of the spectrum that I don't understand. But a lot of them understand that they're carrying a lot of the load and they need a place to vent, because if you just go to work, no one understands what you're doing, but they actually need their own mastermind to just understand and build up their self-confidence to know that they don't not love them. They love them to death. That's why they're pushing so hard. They want a better life for them. But there needs to be something for that kind of breakout
yeah.
room. I would spend money for it to send my other half.
I love where you're going with this. I love where you're going with this. I think that we need to put a bookmark in there.
Mhm.
Ashleigh, this has been awesome. Seriously. Tons and tons and tons of nuggets in here, and hopefully lots of inspirational aspects for people to understand how to, move forward. So thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing all of your experience, and I greatly appreciate it. I really do.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm so glad we got the connection, and that's the power of network. I did not know Jamie. It was through one contact I knew.
100%. One of my mentors says you are one relationship away from changing your life forever.
That is
And
so true.
although I know that the way that he framed it that way, dang it, I just got us prepared to sign off for the show. And now I know what I was going to say to you. I have to share this with
Go
you.
for it. Let's do it.
The reason why I don't think that you should be embarrassed is because of this. If you've ever heard the analogy about you can't see the picture if you're inside the frame, that's
Ah,
it right there, right?
that's
I'm
true.
telling you right now is that the reason why you say, "Well, that's embarrassing," but the great thing about it is by connecting with the people and having the mentorship, you were able to step out of the frame through somebody else's lens
Mm.
that was saying to you, intentionally, unintentionally, you're doing these things because, and then you're like, you're right.
I
You know
like
what I
that
mean?
saying. I'll have to remember that.
So I just want to, as one, visionary or implementer to another, I just want you to know that all of those things are not because you should be embarrassed, but it's just because you are grinding, shucking, and driving, and moving. And so, therefore, we just don't take that, as I like to say in the military, tactical pause
Mhm.
to think about those things. So, anyway, that was my little tip for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ashleigh, thank you seriously so much. Can't wait for this one to launch. Super pumped about it. Have a great day. I know that you took your time away from work to do this, and I hope you guys
That's a
have
secret.
a. Oh, my bad.
I'm just joking.
She didn't. This is Saturday. So anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will text you. I hope that maybe you have some time on Sunday and we could meet up in person, even if it's just
Yeah,
for about 30
absolutely.
minutes. So thanks, Ashleigh.
Well, thank you.